I, 31F, have been married to Brian, 33M, for 3 years now. We met at a charity event for a local animal shelter where we both volunteered. I was immediately drawn to his kind eyes and infectious laugh. Brian worked in finance and I was a marketing executive. Despite our busy schedules, we made time for each other, and our relationship blossomed quickly. Brian came from a well-to-do family. His father was a prominent lawyer, and his mother was a retired school principal. They seemed nice enough when I met them, but I always felt a certain coldness from them, especially Brian's mother. Brian would brush it off, saying they were just reserved people. My own family background was quite different. I grew up in a tight-knit, middle-class family with 2 older brothers. My parents, both teachers, instilled in us the values of honesty and hard work. They welcomed Brian with open arms when we started dating. Our wedding was a lavish affair, mostly planned by Brian's parents. I would have preferred something smaller and more intimate, but I went along with it to keep the peace. Looking back, maybe that was the first red flag, my tendency to compromise to avoid conflict. The first 2 years of our marriage were mostly happy. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs and talked about starting a family soon. Brian's career was taking off, and he was working longer hours, but he always made time for date nights and weekend getaways. Everything changed last week when Brian came home with a woman I'd never seen before. He introduced her as Megan, 28F, his long-lost cousin. According to Brian, Megan had been estranged from the family for years after a falling out with her parents. He said she needed a place to stay for a while and asked if she could live with us temporarily. I was taken aback. In all our years together, Brian had never mentioned having a cousin. When I asked about it, he said it was a painful family topic that he didn't like discussing. He seemed upset that I was questioning him, so I dropped it for the moment. Megan was pretty in a girl-next-door kind of way. She had long brown hair, green eyes, and a smattering of freckles across her nose. She seemed nice enough, if a bit reserved. I tried to be welcoming, showing her to the guest room and giving her a tour of the house. Over the next few days, I started noticing things that made me uneasy. Brian and Megan seemed very close and comfortable with each other for long-lost relatives. They'd often sit close together on the couch, whispering and laughing. A few times I walked in on them having hushed conversations that abruptly stopped when they saw me. One night, I came home late from work and found them, drinking wine together in the kitchen. Megan was sitting on the counter while Brian stood very close to her, their heads bent together. They jumped apart when I walked in, looking guilty. I started paying more attention after that. Brian was spending a lot of time with Megan, even taking days off work to show her around the city. Meanwhile, he was becoming more distant with me. He was often irritable and snapped at me over little things. When I tried to talk to Brian about my concerns, he got defensive and accused me of being paranoid and unwelcoming to his family. He said I should be more understanding of Megan's difficult situation. I felt like I was going crazy. Was I just being overly suspicious? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, so I decided to do some digging. I reached out to Brian's parents, saying I wanted to send a gift to welcome Megan back to the family. To my shock, they had no idea who I was talking about. They told me Brian was an only child and didn't have any cousins. I was reeling from this revelation. Why would Brian lie about Megan being his cousin? Who was she really? I didn't confront Brian right away because I wanted to gather more information first. I started going through our home office while Brian was at work, looking for any clues. In a locked drawer of Brian's desk, I found some photos of him with Megan that looked like they were taken years ago. They were clearly a couple in the photos, kissing and embracing. I also found some old letters and cards from Megan to Brian. Reading them made it clear they had been in a serious relationship in the past. Megan wrote about how much she loved Brian and couldn't wait to be with him forever. As I sat there, surrounded by evidence of Brian's lies, memories from our relationship started to take on new meaning. I remembered a trip we took to Chicago early in our relationship. Brian had been acting strange the whole time, constantly checking his phone and disappearing for long periods. He claimed it was work stress, but now I wondered if he had been meeting Megan. There was also the time I found a woman's earring in Brian's car. He said it must have belonged to a coworker he had given a ride to, but he got unusually defensive when I asked about it. Had it been Megan's all along? My head was spinning. I couldn't believe Brian had lied to me like this. I sat there for hours, reading through everything and trying to make sense of it all. When Brian got home that night, I confronted him with what I'd found. At first, he tried to deny it, but when I showed him the photos and letters, he broke down and admitted the truth. Megan was his ex-girlfriend from college. They had dated for 3 years and were even engaged at one point. But Brian's parents disapproved of Megan, thinking she wasn't from a good enough family. They pressured him to break things off, threatening to cut him off financially if he didn't. Brian gave in and ended the relationship, which devastated Megan. Recently, Megan had reached out to Brian again. She told him her marriage had ended in divorce and she was struggling. Brian said he felt guilty about how things ended and wanted to help her. He claimed he only intended to give her temporary support until she got back on her feet. I asked Brian why he lied about who Megan was. He said he was afraid I wouldn't understand if I knew the truth. He swore nothing inappropriate had happened between them and that he loved me. But I didn't know what to believe anymore. As Brian talked, I thought back to all the times in our relationship when things hadn't quite added up. The unexplained absences, the secretive phone calls, the times he got overly defensive about innocent questions. Had he been in touch with Megan all along? I thought about my own family. How disappointed they would be to learn about Brian's deception. My brothers had always been protective of me, and I knew they would be furious. My parents, who valued honesty above all else, would be heartbroken. I told Brian that Megan needed to leave our home immediately. He initially protested, but gave in when he saw how serious I was. Megan left that night to stay with a friend. Now I'm left trying to process everything. I feel betrayed and like my whole marriage has been built on lies. The future I thought we were building together, the plans for children, the house we bought, the life we were creating, it all feels tainted now. Brian is begging for forgiveness, promising to cut all ties with Megan and go to couples counseling. But I don't know if I can ever trust him again. Every time I look at him, I see the photos of him with Megan, the love letters she wrote him. I haven't told anyone what's happening yet. I'm embarrassed and ashamed, feeling like I should have seen this coming. I keep replaying every moment of our relationship in my head, wondering what else I might have missed. I'm not sure what to do next. Should I try to work things out with Brian? Or is this betrayal too big to move past? I love him, or at least I thought I did. But how can I stay with someone who lied so easily and for so long? I'm scared of starting over at 31. We've built a life together, and the thought of dismantling it is overwhelming. But the thought of staying and always wondering, always doubting, is equally daunting. I could use some advice. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you move forward? I feel lost and alone, and I'm not sure where to turn next. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me gain some clarity during this confusing time. After Megan left, Brian continued to beg for forgiveness. He swore up and down that nothing physical had happened between them and that he loved only me. But I just couldn't shake my doubts and mistrust. Every time he touched me, I couldn't help but wonder if he had touched Megan the same way. Every time he said, "I love you," I questioned if he had said the same words to her. I decided to reach out to Megan directly. I got her number from Brian's phone and asked to meet up. To my surprise, she agreed. We met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes. Megan seemed nervous, but willing to talk. Her story matched Brian's in some ways, but there were key differences. She confirmed they had dated in college and been engaged. But according to Megan, Brian had reached out to her recently, not the other way around. Megan said Brian had been unhappy in our marriage and was considering leaving me. He had contacted her saying he still had feelings for her and wanted to reconnect. She admitted they had kissed a few times while living in our house, but claimed it hadn't gone further than that. As Megan talked, I remembered a conversation Brian and I had about 6 months ago. We had been discussing having children, and Brian had seemed hesitant. At the time, I thought he was just nervous about the big step. Now I wondered if he had already been thinking about leaving me. I was stunned by Megan's revelations. This was so different from what Brian had told me. When I confronted him with Megan's version of events, he initially tried to deny it. But when I pressed him, he finally broke down and admitted it was true. Brian confessed that he had been having doubts about our marriage for a while. He said he felt we had grown apart, and he wasn't sure if he still loved me. When he ran into Megan by chance a few months ago, old feelings resurfaced. They started talking and texting regularly. Eventually, Brian invited Megan to stay with us under false pretenses. He claimed he wanted to see if there was still a spark between them before making any decisions about our marriage. He swore they hadn't slept together, but admitted there had been kissing and heavy flirting. As Brian confessed, I thought back to all the little changes in his behavior over the past few months. The way he had stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. How he had been spending more time at the gym, saying he wanted to get in shape. The new cologne he had started wearing. All these little things that I had dismissed at the time now took on new, painful significance. I was devastated. Not only had Brian lied to me repeatedly, but he had been actively pursuing a relationship with another woman while still married to me. I felt like such a fool for not seeing what was happening right under my nose. I thought about my parents and how they would react to this news. They had always been so proud of me, of the life I had built with Brian. How could I tell them that it had all been a lie? And my brothers. They had welcomed Brian into the family like another brother. I knew they would be furious when they found out how he had betrayed me. After a lot of soul-searching and many sleepless nights, I've decided I can't continue this marriage. The trust is completely broken, and I don't think I'll ever be able to look at Brian the same way again. Every happy memory we shared is now tainted by the knowledge of his deception. I told Brian I want a divorce. He broke down crying when I told him my decision. He begged for another chance and said he'd do anything to make it right. He promised to cut all ties with Megan, to go to counseling, to be completely transparent with me about everything. But I know in my heart that too much damage has been done. Even if Brian never spoke to Megan again, how could I ever trust that there wouldn't be another woman in the future? How could I build a family with someone who could lie so easily and for so long? I've moved out of our house and am staying with my sister for now. Being around her 2 young children has been both a comfort and a painful reminder of the future I thought I would have with Brian. My sister has been incredibly supportive, letting me cry on her shoulder and assuring me that I'm making the right decision. I've contacted a divorce lawyer and am starting the process. It's painful and scary, but I know it's the right thing for me. I'm dreading telling my parents, but I know they'll support me no matter what. As for Brian and Megan, I'm not sure what will happen with them. Part of me hopes they end up miserable together, but mostly I just want to move on and heal. I'm trying to focus on myself and building a new life. I've started seeing a therapist to help me process everything. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to, someone who can help me work through my feelings of betrayal and loss. I'm also throwing myself into my work. I've taken on some new projects at the office, which has been a welcome distraction. My boss has been understanding about the situation and has given me some flexibility with my hours as I deal with the divorce proceedings. There are still moments when I miss Brian terribly. I miss the life we had together, the future we had planned. But then I remember the lies, the deception, and I know I'm making the right choice. Thank you again to everyone who offered support and advice. It really helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and make this difficult decision. I know I have a long road ahead, but I'm hopeful for the future. I'll update again once the divorce is finalized. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and things have continued to be challenging, but I'm slowly healing. The divorce proceedings are underway. Brian initially tried to contest it, claiming he had made a mistake and wanted to work things out. He sent me long emails detailing all the good times we had shared, reminiscing about our first date, our wedding day, the trips we had taken together. Reading these messages was like twisting a knife in my heart. I almost wavered in my decision a few times, but I held firm. Eventually, Brian agreed to an uncontested divorce, which should make the process smoother. I think he finally realized that there was no going back after what he had done. One unexpected development was that Brian's parents reached out to me. They had heard about what happened from Brian and wanted to offer their support. To my surprise, they were furious with Brian for his behavior. Brian's mom, Linda, invited me to lunch. She shared some family history I hadn't known before. Apparently, Brian had a pattern of this behavior. In college, he had cheated on Megan with another girl, which was the real reason for their initial breakup. His parents had covered for him at the time, thinking it was just a youthful mistake. Linda apologized profusely for not warning me about Brian's past. She said they had hoped he had changed and grown up. She offered to testify on my behalf if needed in the divorce proceedings. While I appreciated Linda's support, it also made me angry that this information had been hidden from me. If I had known about Brian's history of infidelity, I might have been more cautious or seen the red flags sooner. I couldn't help but feel that Linda and her husband were partly responsible for enabling Brian's behavior over the years. In terms of the practical aspects of separating our lives, it's been stressful but manageable. We're selling our house and dividing up our assets. Thankfully, we don't have children, which makes things less complicated. But it's still painful to dismantle the life we built together. Each item we divide feels like another little death of our relationship. I'm still staying with my sister for now, but I'm looking for my own place. It's daunting to think about starting over on my own, but also exciting in a way. I'm rediscovering parts of myself that got lost in my marriage. I've started painting again, a hobby I had given up when things got busy with work and married life. As for Brian and Megan, I've heard through mutual friends that they are together now. Apparently, they made their relationship official just weeks after I moved out. It stung to hear that, but it also reaffirmed that I made the right choice in leaving. Clearly, Brian's feelings for Megan were more than just a fleeting temptation. I'm focusing on healing and rebuilding my life. I've reconnected with old friends I had drifted away from during my marriage. It's been nice to remember who I was before I became Brian's wife. I'm throwing myself into my work and considering a career change I had always dreamed about but never pursued. Brian had always discouraged it, saying it was too risky, but now I'm free to make my own choices. I finally told my parents about the divorce. They were shocked and saddened, but incredibly supportive. My mom came to stay with me for a week, helping me sort through my things and just being there for me. My dad, usually a man of few words, told me how proud he was of me for standing up for myself. Their support has meant the world to me. Some days are still really hard. I have moments of doubt and loneliness. There are times when I miss the comfort and familiarity of my life with Brian, but overall, I know I'm on the right path. I'm proud of myself for being strong enough to walk away from a bad situation instead of settling. My therapist has been helping me work through my feelings of betrayal and self-doubt. We've been exploring why I stayed silent about my suspicions for so long, and how I can trust my instincts more in the future. It's painful work, but I know it's necessary if I want to have healthy relationships moving forward. I've also joined a support group for people going through divorce. It's been helpful to talk to others who understand what I'm going through. Hearing their stories has made me feel less alone in this journey. Work continues to be a good distraction. I've thrown myself into a big project that's been challenging but rewarding. My boss has hinted at a possible promotion in the near future, which is exciting. Thank you again to this community for all the support. It's been a source of strength during this difficult time. I'll post another update once the divorce is finalized. Update 3. It's been about 3 months since my last update. The divorce was finalized last week, and I'm feeling a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and hope for the future. The process ended up being relatively smooth, thanks in large part to the support of Brian's parents. True to her word, Linda provided a statement about Brian's history of infidelity, which helped my case. In the end, we reached a fair settlement without having to go to court. I've moved into my own apartment now. It's small but cozy, and it feels good to have a space that's all mine. I've been enjoying decorating it and making it feel like home. I've hung up some of my paintings, which feels like a symbol of reclaiming my identity. As for Brian and Megan, I've heard through the grapevine that things aren't going well for them. Apparently, the excitement of their affair has worn off and they're struggling with trust issues. Brian's cousin told me that he saw them having a heated argument in public recently. Part of me feels a bit of schadenfreude, but mostly I'm just glad it's not my problem anymore. I've started dating again, very casually. It's been both exciting and terrifying. My first date was a disaster. I was so nervous I could barely string 2 words together. But it's gotten easier with practice. I'm taking things slow and being careful with my heart. But it's nice to be reminded that there are good people out there. Work has been a great distraction and source of fulfillment. I got that promotion I mentioned in my last update, which has been a nice boost to my confidence. I'm also taking some classes towards that career change I talked about before. It feels good to be working towards a goal that's just for me. My relationship with my family has grown even stronger through this ordeal. My brothers have been incredibly protective, sometimes to a fault. I've had to remind them a few times that I can fight my own battles now. My parents have been a constant source of support, always there with a listening ear or a home-cooked meal when I need it. I still have moments of sadness and anger about what happened. The other day, I found an old photo of Brian and me from our honeymoon, and it brought back a flood of emotions. But those moments are becoming less frequent and less intense. I'm starting to look back on my marriage as a learning experience rather than just a source of pain. I'm proud of how far I've come and excited about what the future holds. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm living life on my own terms. It's scary sometimes, but also incredibly freeing. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support and advice have been invaluable. While I hope to never need this kind of support again, I'm grateful it was here when I did. Here's to new beginnings and the adventures that lie ahead.